Welcome back to the show. Check out these headlines we have for you today. USD loses more purchasing power. We're going to get into it. 11 major central banks and China's central bank is in trouble. We got tokenized U.S. Treasuries. It's good news. But you know what? We got to talk about this. The squeeze play for XRP that could push out retail investors. We got that and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube and digperspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $2.79 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 0.8%. 70,900 plus for Bitcoin right now. 3,500 plus for Ethereum. 104 billion plus market cap for Tether. XRP slipped to the number 7 spot 2 days ago at 62 cents. Up 0.7 on the 24. Up 0.1 on the 7-day. Let's look at the range of price between 62 cents. We'll keep an eye on it, but take a look at these numbers. There's now a call that gold is at a record high of $2,200, which is phenomenal. Shout out to Gold Telegraph for that. Then Eggrag Crypto comes out and says, hey, let's look at the gold chart for a second. And he can see a scenario where gold could go to $3,000, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't mean it will, but it's already hitting a new all-time high. And you guys know I firmly believe that gold is going to be a part of the new financial system, no question. And that's why I have been, and you know this, using Miles Franklin to accumulate gold, and you can too, and you can get the best prices if you do two things. Email them info@milesfranklin.com. I've got the information underneath the video. And put in the subject box, DigGold, D-I-G gold. This way they know that you're coming from me, and you tell them Brad said to come on in and get yourself some gold before it goes to $3,000, or even if it continues to set new record highs like we're seeing already. So this is a remarkable time. And believe me, you can get more than gold. Silver, platinum, palladium, whether you want gold bars, you want coins, eagles, buffaloes, they got it. Make sure you click the link, send it, check it out, and tell them I sent you. Dig gold in the subject box. The U.S. dollar has lost 25% of its purchasing power since just 2020. Every $1 you had is now worth 75 cents of goods. That's what we're talking about. And you can probably make an argument it's even less than that. 11 major central banks, and listen to this, and I'm going to play this video for you, but 11 major central banks are expected to cut rates in the second half of 2024. 11 central banks. Again, this is marking the most synchronized easing cycle since the great financial crisis of 2008. How many more times do we have to hear it? Listen to James Lavish break it down.
10 of the world's 11 major central banks are expected to cut rates in the second half of 2024, marking the most synchronized easing cycle since the great financial crisis of 2008. Last week, the Swiss National Bank became the first major central bank to ease policy after it announced an unexpected 25 basis point cut to its key rate. Other major central banks, including the US Federal Reserve, the ECB, and the Bank of England, are expected to cut rates multiple times before the year ends. In addition, the Central Bank of Brazil, Bank of Mexico, Central Bank of Paraguay, and others have announced rate cuts, with other emerging market economies expected to make similar moves in a few weeks or months. According to Lavish, these rate cuts are a precursor to more reckless monetary printing, because these economies cannot function without further currency debasement. This makes a strong case for Bitcoin, because when everyone realizes how screwed the financial system is, there won't be enough Bitcoin to accommodate the demand.
And this is why I believe before James Lavish starts talking here, we've seen the introduction of the spot Bitcoin ETFs, because it's going to act as a hedge for the BlackRocks and the Fidelities and this one and that one that understand that there is a correction or a collapse that's coming. And in that collapse, I believe we get stablecoin legislation, which really will be the authorization of tokenization, generally speaking, because it's not just going to be for stable coins in regard to like USD stable coins. It's going to be commodity stable coins, derivative stable coins. I think they're going to address it all. If they don't, they're missing one hell of an opportunity. But let's listen to James for a minute here.
Let's get back to the discussion.
Central banks have gotten themselves in a position where, they cannot handle high rates for long, right? So if you look around the world, our developed countries are up above 100% debt to GDP, and even the UK joined that club last year. So that's one aspect of it. I think you're looking around the world and you're hearing central bankers talk about unemployment and employment numbers, and we've heard that from the Fed here. And so now we're talking about even here whether or not it's not whether or not we're raising or lowering rates anymore. It's just when we're going to lower them, and that's become quite obvious. And so now the markets are just deciding and debating over when and how many cuts are coming. And
that's really where we're at here. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And this time, to add to the point that James Lavish is making, we're not in a real estate default swap crisis. We're in a money printing crisis. That's the problem this time around. This is why I keep saying to people, the larger thing that's happening here, the reason I'm here is because of this larger crisis, which stems all the way back to the petrodollar agreement. They're up against it, and they know that the printing can only go on for so long. All the other governments and central banks around the world already know what the answer to this is. And you cannot come out of this crisis without letting every good crisis go to waste. You have to take advantage of it. And the advantage this time around is not only to introduce new value protocols, but to introduce a very real new money to the world inside of the financial system. Remember, Bitcoin's been outside the financial system, and that's great. But we all understand, too, that these ETFs are about bringing that inside of the financial system as well. Because who's buying it all? BlackRock for their clients, Fidelity for their clients, which means Bitcoin is losing that anti-bank, anti-establishment angle that it originally set out to have because it's being bought up by Wall Street. Central banks around the world having trouble include China as well. China now, dictator Xi Jinping has just ordered his central bank to buy his treasury bonds as the Chinese banking and real estate crisis spiral out of control. Now remember here, there's a few elements here that it's been said that Evergrande and USD Tether are tied together, which would be a problem. But let's just go to the central bank angle. All the central banks are working with one another. So not only is this devastating to China, but this is one of those instances where you have to be concerned about cascading effects going over to other countries and their central banks as well. So we'll see. And while we're learning all of that fantastic news, by the way, I'm available for birthday parties, retirement parties, right? With this kind of good news, so chipper, you could see why I'd be available for such events, right? Graduations, I can come and bring an easel set up to a PowerPoint and just crush it, right? Looking at this, there's even more good news here. Yeah, for reason for celebration. Just kidding. It's this, and we've covered it before, but I'm showing you this because of everything I just showed you. 20% losing power. Brian Brooks told us just a few months ago, the former OCC in the United States, Office of Comptroller of Currency, said we're at 58% reserve dominance to the rest of the world's reserve currencies, and basically saying If we don't do something right now before we hit 50% dominance, we're rapidly headed towards a cliff we're going over. The last two of the last 5 national currencies that served as a global reserve currency had an 80-year lifespan. That's Netherlands and Portugal. The United States was 1944 to 2024. We're at 80 years right now. As Brian said, something has to be done. And are we watching that something already start to happen? Because in case you missed it, over $1 billion in U.S. Treasuries has been tokenized on public blockchain Stellar now, which has now surpassed the amount that Ethereum had tokenized Treasuries on the Ethereum network. So Stellar is out here leading the race. This deepens the question again, because what do we know about that? For many years, we've been hearing that Stellar would be more of a front-facing retail digital dollar kind of vibe, right? And more retail consumer-facing network. And not that it has to be, but that's the way it's always been pitched, right? And that XRP would serve more of a wholesale back end. And here we are seeing U.S. Treasuries tokenized to the tune of $1 billion on Stellar's network. You know, again, you know, about stablecoin legislation, I believe stablecoin legislation is really tokenization legislation. Because from the stablecoin legislation, if they do that right, we're going to get tokenized commodities, tokenized securities. So we can have all of these things digitized and tokenized immediately. And this is how you move all the debt onto a ledger, by the way. Then check this out. Valkyrie executive believes an XRP ETF will get approved before Ethereum ETF. And all of this is based on the recent trouble that's been highlighted. Some key takeaways from the fireside chat here, Empower Conference. Valkyrie Stephen McClurg says he believes ETH could be a security and the spot ETF will not get approved in May. And he thinks it's more likely that a Litecoin or XRP spot ETF gets approved. How about that one? Shout out to Eleanor Terrett for that. You know, this is super exciting because this brings into play what I have talked about for years. The Shane Ellis theory, a squeeze play. I see a squeeze play setting up. Automated market makers on the XRP ledger have been amended and approved. They've just worked out a bug. April 11th, we're moving forward. Understanding that helps create liquidity pools on the XRP ledger so people can make payments without having to go to centralized exchanges and buying out the order books. This is exactly what Shane Ellis talked about. The large institutions and central banks and banks like coming in and buying up the order books to use it. And what would they use it for, Brad? Well, they would use it as a market maker to make markets every day and liquidity pools for themselves. Or, if Steve McClurg is right, if we get the approval of an XRP ETF, and I believe we will see hundreds, if not thousands, of crypto ETFs in the future, XRP certainly being one of them, then you have a demand to buy up the asset off the exchanges to back the fund with the asset itself. That's what is required, right? So this gets super interesting to me because you're creating this two-sided dragon that has a demand to scarf all of this up. Look at the demand for spot ETFs for Bitcoin right now with BlackRock. It is the fastest growing ETF in the history of ETFs. And Bitcoin's not that good for payments. Now add in a spot ETF for XRP, and then add in the market maker using it for payments with regulatory clarity there. This two-headed dragon for demand is going to go nuts to buy up this and possibly pinch out the retail investor, which will have a hard time getting it because the price is going to constantly be driven up over time. That's the scenario that I believe is before us when we get that white swan of regulatory legislative clarity. And when we get it, we could be staring at what is said to be here a $13 XRP, according to Tony the Bull Severino here. Using the Elliott wave patterns just like Dark Defender does, he sees a $13 as well, We know Egg Rag Crypto has seen it. Dark Defender seen it. Crypto Bull 2020 seen it. Now this guy's seeing it. There's something about this, but why haven't we all witnessed it yet? Because we're waiting for the white swan of regulatory clarity. It'll come. We're going into the Freedom Zone, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Well, today we're going in, and we absolutely have to use the Freedom Zone today, because what we're going to talk about today absolutely got me demonetized off of YouTube for over 2 months. Today we're going to talk about September 2001. I think you all know the incident. And was it an inside job? Well, we're going to take it inside the Freedom Zone, and I hope you'll join us. It's a great way to support the channel for almost next to nothing. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is a big deal, what we're going to talk about here. And I think it lends to understanding how this country's government works. Let's go inside of the Freedom Zone. Come on in. All right, welcome